What up, YouTube? In this video, I want to talk about remembering the old school army. When I was a young enlisted man, some of the things that we did back in the day, I look at them now and they're all like highlights. They're unforgettable moments. And that's the stuff that we're going to talk about that I want to share with you. So stick around. So, in case you didn't know, I am a military YouTuber. I'm still currently serving. If you take a look at my channel, I put together a lot of military content, and I do it because I just have this real big passion for the U.S. Army. And in about an hour from now, I'm going to turn 37 years old, which means I've been in the Army like 19 years. And even at 19 years, I can still remember a lot of the stuff that stood out when I was a young private in the old school Army. So before I start talking about all the topics, I do want to say this, that the things that I talk about, I don't agree or disagree with them. I'm just letting you know what we used to do in the old school Army. A lot of these things, we don't do them no more. So I just wanted to point that out. So I'm pretty sure that the old school NCOs or the old school soldiers, they're going to get a kick out of this video. And I love to hear your comments below. And when I do start talking about this stuff, it's going to be like a shotgun blast, scatter shot all over the place. It's just stuff that I remember that really stand out. But when did the old school soldiers, when did they start to leave the Army? And there's no set date. There's no like, one day they were all gone. I do want to say probably around, and I'm just guessing, probably around 2005-ish. But by 2008, they were gone. That generation they're gone. I came in 2001, and I remember working, I was in basic training, and we had KP. KP is kitchen patrol. The new soldiers now, they don't do KP duty. They don't do kitchen patrol. But anyway, during KP, I remember wiping down a table and seeing the towers go down. There was a TV in the chow hall. I stopped what I was doing, and I walked up to it, and there was one drill sergeant who was glued to the TV. And I walked up to him and I said, "Drill Sergeant, what's going on?" And he didn't even look at me. He said, "Son, we're about to go to war." And at that time period, the Army's focus was training. They were training and soldiering. And, give it a couple of years, now the Army's going to switch gears and they're going to go into wartime, because of the combat op tempo. And now what's going on, there's really, there's not a lot of soldiers deployed, so the big Army kind of hit the reset button and we're doing a lot of new stuff and we've gone back into a training phase. But back in that time period, first thing I want to talk, the really highlight I want to talk about is BDUs. Our uniform back in the day, BDUs, top, bottom, and the boots. And with the top and bottom, we had to be careful because there was a summer one and there was a winter one. And you can't mix a winter top with the summer bottom. If I remember, the summer top had like lines in it. But getting our BDUs ready for work, man, that was a process. It wasn't like, kind of how it is now where, you pull your uniform out the dryer and you slap it on and put your boots on and go to work. BDUs, nah, you can't do that. You're going to get scuffed up. They're going to tell you, you jumped on a wrinkle bomb. That ain't going to happen. For the top and bottom, two things had to happen. Either you drop it off at the cleaners or you got to go get Stay Flow and iron it yourself. And those uniforms were like so crisp and so sharp. Even when soldiers walked, they made a sound because the uniforms were so starched up. And during the summertime when we started sweating and the sweat gets into the starch, it was very uncomfortable. But you know, uh, but back in that time period when we wore BDUs, the soldiers, I noticed we really took pride in our uniform. And the boots, the process to get the boots ready for work. Oh, let me just try to remember. It was, you know, first we had to get all the dust and dirt from wearing them that day. You know, what I did was I ran them over a sink with cool water. You got to take the laces out, put your hand in there, kiwi, black kiwi, and maybe neutral sometimes, and you put on a movie, and you literally in the evening you sat there and you watched the movie, and I used jumbo cotton balls with a lot of water and just shining boots. And then when the shine was good, put the laces back in. The last thing you did was put on edge dressing, and like you're ready for the next day. That was like probably an hour and 15 minutes right there. Every evening, getting the boots ready for work. And Monday mornings we had open range inspection. The platoon sergeant would inspect the squad leaders, the team leaders, and go down the line. And before he called open ranks, he said, "Everybody, pull out your ID card and ID tags." I remember, I remember if I'm walking to formation and I forgot my ID card and ID tags, I ran back to the barracks to go get that and to go meet formation. Um, and then when he was done with the open ranks inspection, whoever had the best looking uniform, sometimes they would get like half a day off, or he would say, "Hey, I owe you a day off." But because of that, we had this competition of who would have the best looking uniform and the best looking boots. And it was we really took pride in our uniforms back in the day. Okay, so moving on to the next thing that I really remember, and we don't do this. I'm pretty sure we don't do this now anymore. I don't know what all the units are doing out in the field, but back in the day, old school Army, we had something called Sergeant Time Training. Sergeant's Time Training. When I was in Hawaii, uh, this was every Thursday. Every Thursday. So every Thursday, what happened was the enlisted, they didn't do PT. They were told to they were told that you need to get breakfast on your own, but you need to be at the company at 08 full battle rattle with all your gear. But it wasn't like that for the NCOs. The NCOs, they came in that morning and they always went on a run with the company first sergeant. And within that formation, that running formation, there was no officers, there was no enlisted. It was just first sergeant with the NCOs. But sergeant time training, we would come in at 08 and Kevlar, LBV, and pro mask. We got to have a pro mask. That was a minimum. And then as a squad, we would go out in the tree line. The NCOs would bring like dry erase boards, and that for the rest of the day we're just doing like skill level 1 tasks, you warrior task battle drills for that entire day. And with sergeant time training, we left at 1500 because that's what we called family time. 1500 every Thursday after sergeant time training, we just left. Next thing I remember is something called Payday Activities. Payday Activities was something that happened at the first of every month when people got paid. And the whole purpose, what we did was we would come in the company, we have a class A inspection, we would hang out probably until lunch, and then we would get released for the rest of the day. And back in that time period, cell phones were, they were kind of taken off a little bit, but in order to pay your bills, you had to actually go to the cable company, or you had to go to the power company or water company and walk in and pay your bills that way. It's not like how it is now where internet. It has all these apps. All these companies have websites, or you can just kind of customer service is all over the place. Just pay on the phone, and it just makes it easier for us. Back then, we didn't have that. We had a day set aside where, like I said, payday activities, and that was it. Another thing that I remember is we had a lot of formations. We had a lot of formations. You know, during the old kind of during that old school time period, we had a formation. We had first formation, which was accountability, the PT formation, and even if that, there were, as everybody's mustering up around the company area, there was 2 to 3 soldiers with clipboards and alpha rosters where they were walking around checking off who's there. And then, 15 minutes prior before formation, when they're starting to kind of form up, they would take those clipboards to first sergeant, and he would know who's there, who's not there. So they already kind of knew who's going to be out of ranks. So we had accountability formation, and then we had a formation after PT. We had a 09 work call formation. We had a formation at 11:30 to get cut loose for lunch. Then we had a formation at 1300 to see who all came back from lunch. And then at that time, everybody is just waiting for COB, close of business, final formation of the day, which is probably like it was 1700. We didn't go home until 1700. We stood there, we saluted the flag, and then we went home. And in between all those formations, there's probably sometimes little formations where they got to put out information for anything going on. But I remember we had a lot of formations back in the day. Another thing is going to the field. We would go to the field for like 30 days. Like 30, like we'd have 30-day field problems. And then 14-day 2-week field problems too. And being in the field for 30 days, that's like a lot of spades, a lot of joker deuce. Just being in the field for that long with that pro mass attached to your hip, and then somebody saying gas, and you open up your pro mass, and then you try to get your mass out, and all your sunflower seeds and stuff is falling out. It was it's just the stuff that I remember. Getting smoked, right? Getting smoked, and it was just if you're a private, you're gonna get smoked for no reason. Like you can just get smoked, like whatever. Hey, start doing push-ups, and the NCOs in that time period, they had a lot of exercises that we can't use them anymore. We can't, if the soldiers mess up, we can't tell them to do these things. And I'm talking about exercises like front back goes, little man in the woods, the Harley Davidson, the dying cockroach, diamond push-ups, cherry pickers. Like it was all kinds of stuff that we did when I was lower enlisted. And even back then, the business model of the Army was, there was no doubt about it, it was like a straight up dictatorship. Now it's become more democratic, but back then it was a straight dictatorship. So if you got smoked, and if you're gonna ask your sergeant why you got smoked, like we didn't do that. We didn't do that. That was it. The last thing that I want to touch up on is is this. I really remember that when I was growing up in the ranks as a private, lower enlisted, I remember that my squad leaders back then, they were like father figures. Like they were, it's not like how it is now where, some of these guys are getting promoted really quick. Back then, they were like, they had a lot of time in service. They had a lot of time in service, and then they got promoted to sergeant or staff sergeant. But they were father figures, and I say that because they were very wise and they had a lot of wisdom. And that's one of the things that I really do remember that stood out when I was growing up in the ranks of the U.S. Army. But anyway, that is going to be it for this video. Those are probably the really big highlights that I remember. I could think of some more stuff, but I don't want this video to be too long. And if you're an old school soldier that you served before and you can remember some stuff that really stick with you, put in the comments below. But do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, and anyway, guys, I'll see you later, and happy birthday to me. Bye.